Okay, welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome people in the cheap seats up the back and everybody else on the tables. This is a cracking session this afternoon, and if you're not here, well, you're missing something. We've got a whole gang of gifted folk. There's going to be presentations up to coffee, and then the whole rest of the session after coffee is questions, which will obviously be the best bit, the fabbiest bit, of course. I'm going to be vicious with people's time, so we do get to coffee on time. And then the panel are going to all leap up here. I'm going to wander around. You hopefully are messaging each other on your Nintendos, and you can talk too. That's allowed. I've got some general things to say, which I'm going to say right in a moment. And then we're going to trot up here at a beauty competition, and everybody's got sensible and wise things to say. I'm looking forward to hearing it. And then we're going to have a few more people on the panel after the break, and away we go. So, crumbs, where should we start? I think here. I've been rushing around the world a lot lately, as I'm sure you know, and. One of the things you notice when you're rushing around the world, those moving pavements you get at airports. This one in Dubai, by the look of it. And when you look at them, what you see, of course, are people who've leapt onto them. They're walking along, and they're having a nice, casual time progressing their way through the airport. But you know what happens? You get on these things, and because they're moving, some people get on, and they just stop. They think because the pavement's going along, they think they're making progress. You don't need me to spell out the analogy here, do you? No. And you always come across those, and they're always standing blocking the way. And they're looking at the wall going past, and they think, hey, this is cool, we're moving along here, this is good. You also get people who just they show up, they see all this stuff, they sit down, they look puzzled, they look depressed, and by and large, they miss their planes. And there were plenty of those in Dubai. And you also get people who just keep clear of it altogether. You know, they see these dodgy moving staircases. They think, if I get on that, I'm going to fall over. My bag will get stuck in the end of something I don't understand. My heels will get broken. And they walk alongside the moving pavements and are exhausted with just trying to keep up. And a few people, of course, who've confidently leapt on, are sitting there relaxed, and the thing's whisking them along. But sadly in the wrong direction. Now, that's pretty much where we are with learning at the moment. It seems to me that the moving pavement of technology is whisking us along at a pace, and it probably isn't enough anymore just to think, well, we're moving along, that will do. And I'm going to draw some analogies this afternoon with the financial collapse that's happening about our ears. Astronomic sums of money. I was in San Diego last week, and I just divided 750 million, 0.75 of $1 trillion by their 130,000 schools, and it works out somewhere between $5 and $6 million per school. Bear in mind the average size of a lot of American schools are tiny. That would make a bit of difference, and you wonder 10 years from now whether, in our case, saving Northern Rock, or rebuilding every secondary school and every primary school and a lot more besides would have been the better investment. So I worry that the implication of the changed world that we're in, and make no mistake, we are in a new world. This is a new economy this side of the collapse of our banking system. I worry that in that new world, we aren't going to be able to do things the way we've done them in the past. And I say, hallelujah and jolly good job too, because if you look at that world of banking and finance, I don't think there's anybody in this room that wasn't clear about what was going wrong. You were looking at houses and saying, that's too expensive. You were looking at crumbs. My daughter, goes to buy a house, and the mortgage she was offered was astronomical compared to her salary. They're offering her comfortably 5 times. And I'm sure you've been to wage slips for you, for as a number, you as a letter, where they will generate a proof of income for you, a P60, for any income you care to remember. It says very clearly on the website, you mustn't use this fraudulently, But if you've lost your P60, we'll recreate it for you. And I think what had happened with the banking sector was, on the one hand, they didn't listen to the certainties that were around them everywhere. On the other hand, they were quite overwhelmed by what technology did to them. And when everybody in Britain and America and all around the world that wanted a mortgage could fake their income, and when the banks were already being overgenerous with the mortgages they were lending them, you knew that it was going to end in tears. Well, I'll come back to that later, because there's a whole mass of stuff that we know absolutely with certainty about all this. You know, this is from a long way back. This is from, well, I'll tell you who wrote this in a moment, but it says school designs should do away with long corridors. We should have more all-age schools. We should think about integration and extending we should think about stage, not age models. I mean, this is radical stuff we've all known. You've listened to people talking from this platform. They've talked about mutuality and collegiality. They've talked about inspirational children. They've talked about learner voice. I mean, just tick all the boxes. This, by the way, was written by Christine Gilbert, who's now running Ofsted, looking after the quality control of our schools. We've known for a huge amount of time that, you know, there's a new model of learning. Educators are lifelong learners, that people in groups learn from and with each other, that sense of mutuality. This is from the World Bank. None of these people are doing what they knew, but they absolutely knew it with a certainty. We've known this for a very, very long time. We've known that, you know, my own World Learning Survey, we know that we're moving from one size fits all to personalization. We've gone from one-to-many learning to peer-to-peer. We know that we're going from teaching to learning, and yet we've still got a model, haven't we, that assesses teachers as teachers, not teachers as learners, and we've still got an assessment model that assesses children as learners, but not children as teachers, although we give good lip service to children's mentoring and teaching everywhere. We know this with certainty, and we've known it for a very long time. We know that assessment can change. I'm not expecting to read any of this stuff. This is from the Aviva project. This is a brochure from the QCA saying how fabulous and effective it is when children are assessed by their mobile phones. Their phone rings. You remember Aviva project? Blimey, how many years ago was it? Where's James gone? It'll be 5 years ago, isn't it? If it's a day. You know, the kids' phones rang and they did a full-on Viva. You say Viva, I say Viva. On their phones. It was hugely effective. QCA embraced it, said how fabulous it was, but they haven't done it. So we've had this certainty for a huge amount of time. Look, here's George Mitchell's school in East London, where, you know, well, you can read this, I think, probably even from the back. The children are doing lesson observations. They interview new staff. They turn up for all the staff meetings. They turn up for all the inset days. And this new initiative is called Making Learning Better. Well, it would be, wouldn't it? Because it does. You know, we know that engaging children as lesson observers is powerful and effective because they give us good advice, but also because that meta-level reflection on their own learning is triggered and they think, oh, blimey, how might I learn better? How might we learn better? So we've known all this with clarity and with certainty, and we've known it for a very long time. And yet, you know, here's the Ipsos Mori survey for the Campaign for Learning, where they ask, what are the most common teaching methods in schools? What do children say? Well, you can read all this. I don't need me to read it out to you. It'd be horrid. And what did the children report? The most popular things that they do in class. Top of the list. 52% of children reported that the thing they did most of was copying from a book or the board, up from 47% last year, and growing. This is UK, by the way, so if you're from overseas or the Isle of Man or somewhere sensible, take heart, you know. Secondly, listening to a teacher talking for a long time. 33% reported that, and taking notes while their teacher talks. 25%, you can feel the cutting edge of technology sweeping through all this country. No, you can't. What did the children say they wanted, on the other hand? Well, what they said they wanted, their top thing they reported was to learn together. Learning in groups. They wanted to tear open their exam certificates in August and take out their group certificate and say, look what we've achieved. Secondly, they wanted to do stuff. 39% was their top choice. And third, they wanted to learn with friends. And fourth, they wanted to learn with computers. Now, You haven't got to be very alert after lunch to realize that these two don't match, do they? What children are being asked to do and what they would like to do are some distance apart. Now, I've been in this game for a quarter of a century or more, and I've seen fabulous progress, great projects. I've seen children's eyes light up around the world. I've seen, golly gosh, the schools we're building in the Cayman Islands, the children's performance is doubling in 4 years. I've seen spectacular progress. But what makes me really nervous is that I think we're exactly where the finance industry was. I think we know with absolute certainty, nice ring, Bob. I think we know with absolute certainty what needs to be done. We know with absolute certainty what is effective and what doesn't work. And yet we've got this nostalgia drift where somehow when we take our eyes off the ball, people revert to what we know is ineffective, what we know is not engaging, what we know is not seductive, we know is not even affordable models of learning. So I'm here to say to you, I think it's time to be cracking on. We know that when we say to children, let's talk about literacy, we say, let's talk about what would a literate teacher be able to do. We know that they say this, and we know that they say this, and we know that they say this, and they're just worried about their teachers losing money when they say that, they're kind, and we know that they say this, and they laugh a lot. We know when they say this, it's straight data straight back from children. That's what they want from their teachers, that's what they expect. And we know that we're in a different place to the place we've ever been before because of that. If you add up all the children on the planet who've ever been to school, we know that more children will leave school in the next 30 years than have left school in history. So we're in a different place. We know that models of finance are not as generous. I mean, you think about the USA. Only 2 countries spend more of their GDP on education than the USA, and one of those was Iceland, so Denmark, as we now know it. B-jams. And yet there are only 11 countries behind them in the table of educational attainment for school graduates. So, we know that the model we've got is way expensive, and the average weighted pupil unit for a child right here in the UK is about £5,000 per kid per year. In Afghanistan, it's £30. When I said to the Minister of Education in Kurdistan, what's the most important thing in the design of your schools, she said, crucially, from the air, they must not look like military installations. So we know that the rest of the world is in a place that needs a fresh approach and a fresh look, exactly as the finance industry needed a fresh look and a fresh approach. Now, it's our choice what we're going to do about all this. We could just keep doing fabulous projects that are engaging and delightful. Look, here's a lovely project I was doing. A bunch of children came to join me on the boat. This is in Melton Mowbray, their school. We gave them all iPod Touches and iPhones and said, hey, use these for a year. At the end of the year, we looked to see what they'd done. There were surprises. We learned a lot from it. It's good research. One of the surprises was no child under 13 ever searched on Google. Their primary search engine was YouTube, as I'm sure many of you know. Another surprise was they didn't use mail. We said, what's mail for? They said, we think it's what your dad does. This is a world that's changing rapidly. So we could just keep doing all that and learning from it and moving forward. Or we could think really hard about this and we could say 2 things. Firstly, let's think about that in-betweeny space that we find ourselves in as an opportunity. That space between teacher and student, that space between broadcaster and viewer, where we've got something like 8 hours of video contributed to YouTube every minute. So how many hours have been contributed since I've been here? That sense that you used to have a broadcaster, you used to have a viewer. In that in-betweeny space where everybody's a broadcaster, that's where the fertile space is for us to really crack on with all this. And we know that between me and you is that space of mutuality and collegiality and sharing and exchange. And we know that between now and not now is that nearly now space that children texted, and we know how powerfully that is unobtrusive, it's not adversarial, it's full of research and reflection and representation. So I think it's time to crack on. I think it's time for us to say, we've done enough confirming what we knew already. It's time for us to act on what we knew. If we don't, my belief is that the education system, particularly secondary education in this country, will not see the turn of this decade. There are too many alternatives, too many other ways that children can learn. The number of children home educated in this country went up by 100,000 last year alone. The number of home educated children in America doubled in the last 4 years. So, you know, we know things are changing, and I think we're on the edge of an educational collapse. And in a rather nice way, this is the point I'm going to leave you with as I hand over to my colleagues to say their bits. There is no they. The economic system fell over because people were doing the wrong thing, thinking sooner or later, if this is really daft, they'll stop us. We were sitting thinking, that seems like an awful lot of money to pay for a one-bedroom flat on the 5th floor of Docklands, looking backwards over an old dock, you know, but if it was really stupid, they would stop it. There is no they. In the 21st century, there is only us. It's down to us to do. Nobody's going to intervene. Ministers haven't got time to keep up with the pace of where you're going in your schools, in your classrooms, and your universities. They can't keep up. That means we need to think about what's sensible and what's wise. And, you know, I think it's fair to say that we could redefine this conference. The world that we're in is a world of mutuality and self-help and helping people to help each other. As the children yesterday in the wonderful judging thing we were doing with Johnny Ball, they said it's all about usness. And I just want you to leave you with that sense that handheld learning really suddenly isn't about the bits of kit in your hand. It's about holding each other's hands and helping move forward in all this. It is about usness. There is no they, there is only us. So this afternoon, us are going to get on with really properly leaping forward and changing the world. And I'll tell you what, this is the most exciting decade I've been in my career. And we're going to be in a different place in 2 years' time to where we are now. And I don't think I've ever been able to say that before. I just hope it's a good place. Right, well, let's crack on.